Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Kathy Lucier. Thank you for joining us for Library Newsletters Best Practices. I'm the Engagement Manager for NoveList, and I'm so thrilled you all are here and joining us today. If you've been thinking of starting a newsletter or want to improve the one you're currently sending, you're in the right place. We'll be recording this session, which is great because I know you'll want to review the ideas and inspiration you hear and see today. We are going to talk with three of the libraries that were featured in our white paper. We're going to talk to them about their exceptional newsletter and their newsletter process. Then at the end, I'll show you how easy it is to create an internal or external newsletter with a customizable template. So stay online for that. We have a ton of tips and examples ahead, so let's get started. Our first panelist is Samantha Bonnet. Samantha is the Marketing and Development Manager for Shreve Memorial Library, a 21-branch library system serving Shreveport, Louisiana, and the surrounding Caddo Parish. She's a proud alum of Tulane University and brings over 15 years of marketing experience in both the public and private sector to her role. She joined the library in 2017, and since then, Samantha has worked to develop their strategic plan, increase awareness of library resources and services, and as well as attendance at library programs and events. She also helped establish a library foundation. So I know you're going to learn a lot from her. Samantha, why don't you go ahead and give us a quick walkthrough of your newsletter? I'm going to pop in with some questions while you're talking. So go ahead and start off. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kathy, and thank you to everyone who's tuning in today. I'm excited to be here to talk about our newsletter. I'm going to introduce you guys to the Shreve Read Online, which is our biweekly newsletter here at Shreve Memorial Library, and hopefully you'll be able to get a little bit of information and inspiration out of what we do here at Shreve Memorial Library. So first, just who are we? Who is Shreve Memorial Library? Well, this is Shreve Memorial Library. We are a 21-branch library system serving Shreveport, Louisiana, and surrounding Caddo Parish. It is located in the northwest corner of the state of Louisiana. So if you've visited Louisiana and you've been to New Orleans and that's what you know of Louisiana, we're on the complete opposite side of the state. So we're Louisiana's other side. Like I said, we have 21 branches, 2 mobile libraries, a mobile maker space, a support services center that houses all of our administrative offices, and a 24/7 e-branch that's available anytime for anyone. We are funded through property tax millages and provide a plethora of services and programs for our constituents. In 2017, when I came onto the library, we started to talk about developing a strategic plan. And one of the things that I heard over and over again when we visited the town hall meetings and talked with our constituents is that a lot of the people really didn't know that you could do that or do different things at the library. One of our questions we got all the time was, oh, I didn't know you could do that at the library, or you can do what at the library? So it got me thinking that one of the first things I needed to do as a marketer was find a way to help promote our services and to educate the public on our programs and the services that we offered. And thus, the Shreve Read Online was born. So our first issue went out in March of 2017. We now distribute the newsletter bi-weekly. It goes out every other week. We have an opt-out subscription, so anyone with a library card and an email address is automatically signed up to receive our newsletter. They do have the option of opting out if they decide they don't want to continue to receive the newsletter. And since we send this out to everyone, we try to have a mix of information. It includes our system-wide programs, new services, upcoming events, spotlights on different library branches and special initiatives. And then we also include book suggestions for all ages. So we'll feature a children's, teens, and adult book in each issue.
Samantha, this is really great. I love how colorful it is. You had mentioned your strategic plan, and I know that you are a veteran marketer. So talk to us about how the newsletter is part of your overall marketing effort.
Yes, so the newsletter is one piece of our marketing efforts. Like the people pictured in this picture, they are survivors of our Stranger Things inspired escape room. Everything works better together. So they were able to work together to get out of the escape room, and that's the way our newsletter works with all the rest of our marketing efforts. So in addition to our newsletter, we also do other email blasts. We have billboards. We do posters and flyers for programs. We have some paid advertisements in print magazines, on television stations and radio, and of course we're on all social media channels. I encourage you all listening, if you don't follow us, to go ahead and follow us at Shreve Memorial. Our e-branch manager is completely awesome, and he does a great job on our social media and our website. And of course, we do traditional press releases where we send out stories to all of our local media. So we try to get as much information out as possible, and our newsletter is a way we reach those people who are already engaged with the library to keep them engaged. One thing we like to do is to make sure that our branding remains consistent across media outlets. So if you'll see a billboard, it will be the same imagery that you'll see on our social media or in our newsletter. So everything is tied together.
I really love that. I love the brand consistency. That's a really great point, so I appreciate you adding that. Now, I happen to know from talking to you that you have a secret weapon to keeping everything on track, because you do a lot. Boy, a lot is on your plate there. And I happen to know that this secret weapon takes up pretty much most of the wall in your office. Is that right? Can you share that with us?
Yes, I will. You've twisted my arm enough that I will share this.
I know you didn't want to. You did.
To everyone listening, I was very reluctant to share this, but this is a sneak peek. This is a sneak peek into my world. This is the board that takes up most of the wall of my office. On this board is everything that we are planning to do in marketing. With our marketing and programming teams, it lists all of our system-wide programs, all of the events and programs and initiatives we're going to send out press releases for, what we're going to talk about in our weekly newspaper article. It lists our plans for the next issue of our e-newsletter and our email blast, as well as any social media, any outreach, any PR, creative requests. Anything that we have going on in the marketing department is on my board. And this is a living, breathing thing. It changes constantly. It is constantly being updated and refreshed. So in addition to this board, we also meet every other week with our marketing and programming teams, and we discuss our calendar. And I have a massive Excel spreadsheet that serves as our editorial calendar that lists every program that we have going on at all 21 of our branches. And it's a way for us to see what's happening on what day, what we want to focus on, what we want to send out newsletters about or press releases about. And then I follow up that meeting with a very long, detailed email. So all of these things work to keep our marketing team on the same page to make sure that our messaging is consistent across platforms. And we kind of all work together.
Yeah, that is amazing. And I love the fact that you're showing an Excel spreadsheet, because I get questions all the time about different tools to use for editorial calendars. There's a lot of tools out there, but you are crushing the Excel spreadsheet, and I love the color coding.
I am, and I'm a very visual person. I love color, and it helps me, but you know, you can use whatever editorial calendar works for you. This works best for me.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I know from looking at your topics and also from seeing your newsletter that you cover a little bit for each age group. So tell me about that strategy, and how do you achieve that? I mean, it's just one newsletter a month, so how do you cram it all in?
Well, our vision statement is Dream, Discover, Do, Shreve Memorial Library, and you. So we want to empower all of our customers to be able to do just that when they visit our library. And the e-newsletter actually goes out twice a month. It's every other week. And we try to touch on something for everyone. So as I mentioned before, we'll include things on system-wide events, programs for all ages, children's, teens, and adults. I try to include at least one children's program, one teen program, one adult program in the newsletter. We do a spotlight on our libraries. It'll feature a different library each month or a different service that we provide. We also do what we call news and tech updates for those who maybe don't actually physically visit the library, but they do a lot of digital downloads and use things like Overdrive and Hoopla. We'll include that in there. And again, we mention new books at our library for all ages. So there's always going to be an adult fiction book, a children's book, or a teen book featured in our newsletter.
I love that. I mean, you really cover all the bases. So, and you do a great job of it. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I also love how you use real pictures. These are actual photos that I think you've got people taking at your library, and so that's something I want to know more about. And what's your library's policy on photo releases? I know it varies from library to library, but we get this question a lot. So talk to us about using photos.
Okay, well, all of the pictures that you've seen so far in this presentation are all actual photos that were taken at our library branches during different programs. These are also actual headers for newsletters. These have all been used in our newsletters in the past. Our library has a policy where we are a public space. So anytime that you come into our library, there's a general disclaimer that states you agree to have your photograph taken to be used by the library by being on the premises, as long as we're not using your name in our promotional materials. If at any time we're going to actually list someone by name, then we will get a release form. But generally, attendance at our programs or in the library implies that you don't mind being photographed by library staff for library promotions. So we use our actual pictures in all of our newsletter. This is a way for the people who are tuning in to see what is actually happening at the library. And it's also something that's exciting for people who get our newsletter and they have a chance of seeing themselves featured in the newsletter. So they can be like, hey, did you see the last issue of the newsletter? My picture was in there. And it's something that kind of gets them excited. And it also reinforces our vision statement. You know, Dream Discover Do, Street Memorial Library, and you, our patrons, are part of our library, and we want them to be featured in our newsletter as well.
Yeah, I really like that. And that was the policy back when I was at my library system. It's a public space, and your picture might appear. So that may be different with other libraries, but I'm glad you shared that with us. What challenges or obstacles? I mean, you've painted a pretty picture so far, so are there any challenges or obstacles you faced in getting the newsletter off the ground?
We did have several challenges, but before I talk about the challenges, I love this picture, and I just want to explain what's happening in this picture. So this picture is from
Please do.
This picture is from our Children's Book Festival that we have each May. And it features one of our library staff members with a local author named Jasper Price. And he has this great book called The Zombie Apocalypse. And in the book, the children have to stave off a zombie sock invasion. So they're challenged to find where these zombie socks are coming from. And it basically teaches kids to put up your dirty socks and do your laundry. It's a great book. I love it. So while we didn't have any zombie socks as far as our newsletter goes, we did have issues with newsletters that had been done previously that for whatever reason had been discontinued or didn't work. So we had to convince, our management that it was worth the effort to start up another newsletter and to maybe do it a little bit differently. Our previous newsletter was a print newsletter, and this one was going to be all digital. So that was our first challenge. The second challenge that we had was deciding on whether or not we wanted to have an opt-in newsletter or an opt-out newsletter. There were some issues with privacy concerns and emailing people that didn't sign up for our newsletter because that was not something that we had done previously. So we tried to do the opt-in route for a little while, but we did not get very much traction with that. So after a couple of weeks of not getting traction with opting in, we were able to convince our management that we should do an opt-out newsletter. We just assured them that, if patrons get the newsletter and they decide they don't want it, they can opt out easily and it won't be a hassle. So we got the opt-out going, and that was great. And then we found out that we had not done a great job of getting email addresses for our library patrons. We had tons of card holders that did not have a valid email address or an email address at all. So that is something that we've been working with to get our staff into the practice of making sure they ask for that email address when they sign people up for library cards.
Sure. And I think that last point is a strategy I know that some folks in Canada use because they have different rules about opt-in, opt-out. So, always check with any local rules as far as that goes. But I'm glad you figured out a way to get some traction with your newsletter. And I know you do have some pretty good traction with that newsletter. Do you want to share how that is going, what people think about it? I know you were worried about staff concerns that this was going to be a whole lot of work. How did that turn out?
Well, so far, we've gotten a great response for our newsletter. Like I said, we started this in 2017, and it is something that we continue to push out. This one has been more successful, I think, than maybe others. It's just that there's consistency, and when the newsletter goes out, it goes out every other Wednesday. The frequency is every 2 weeks, so they're not getting it, they're not getting it too often, and they're not getting it too few times. So that works for us. And then the readability of the newsletter has worked in our favor. It is something that is very quick to read. When our patrons get it, they know exactly what to expect, and it's something that they can easily read, and they generally enjoy the newsletter.
Oh, that's great. It really has impressed me in looking at that. I'm sure that people tuned in right now are pretty impressed with everything that you're doing. Again, I love your pictures. This one is great.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So thank you for that, Samantha. We are going to turn now to the West Coast in the U.S., out to California with our next panelist, Jamie Wong. Jamie is the Public Relations Officer for San Francisco Public Library, where she oversees and coordinates the marketing and public relations campaigns for the main library. And she also does the communications for 27 branch libraries throughout the city. Among the 1,500 events that happen throughout the system monthly, she promotes system-wide programs such as the library's flagship summer learning program, Summer Stride, and they have the best graphics for that. I'm telling you, they are really great. And the annual literary event, One City, One Book. Prior to her current role, she worked in school and library marketing for publisher Chronicle Books and was an educator for over a decade. Yay, teachers. She is thrilled to return to public service and is passionate about connecting communities through the library. Jamie produces a monthly newsletter for library customers. You can see it here over on the right. We broke it so it would fit on the screen. They have a lot of library customers who receive that. In fact, her newsletter goes out to over 300,000 customers each month. Well, whether you have 30 customers or 300,000 customers, you're going to learn a lot from Jamie. So let's go ahead and start out with Jamie. She's going to give us an overview of her newsletter, and probably, once again, going to pop in with some questions. Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for that wonderful introduction. It is such an honor to join this group today and to share a little bit about our email marketing campaigns, our e-newsletters. I've already learned so much from my colleagues who are presenting this morning, and I'm excited to hear what questions the attendees have and try to answer some of what you're wondering about our e-newsletter. So basically what you see here is, as Kathy mentioned, a screenshot of our June 2019 e-newsletter that went out to over 300,000 library cardholders. And I want to just give you a few of the nuts and bolts of what makes up our e-newsletter. And I am happy to share some of the thinking behind what we do here with our monthly e-newsletter. Okay, so the first thing to do if you are starting up an e-newsletter or you're revisiting your current e-newsletter is to determine some of your common, your marketing goals, to ask the questions that you would ask with any marketing campaign. Number one, how often can I commit to sending out an e-newsletter? Who's the audience, and what are the goals? So in our particular case, we have a monthly e-newsletter. It goes out to all library cardholders, and currently we're standing at about 330,000 plus. And our goals are much the same that I've been seeing in the chat. So we want to get out news about our major programs that are happening system-wide. We have a lot of great events that are happening with partners that we want to share and promote using this particular channel. We have a lot of book clubs that happen, so we get out the news about that. We have a number of exhibitions that are happening in our main library as well as in our branches that we want to share with our audience. And of course, we want to share news about our valuable e-resources. We have so many. And the question is, how do we manage to spotlight each of them? And we try to use the e-newsletter as a platform to promote those. And lastly, we have the efforts of our Friends project, our Friends program. We love to show some of the major fun events and initiatives that they're working on because they do such great work, and we want to be able to showcase them as well. Okay.
That's great. Yeah, but that's, take a deep breath, Jamie, because that's an ambitious list of content to include. So how exactly do you lay this out to make sure that the newsletter flows well and includes everything you need, but not too much? So tell me about all your ingredients putting this together.
Of course, yes. So we want this to be really user-friendly, and we want to make sure that people are getting the information that they need. So right here, you can see some of the template building blocks that we have. So some really standard but really important links that we have right at the top of our e-newsletter that comes out, and people can learn to expect it. So they can say each month, oh yeah, I want to make sure that I click on the calendar. It's right at the top. Or maybe I want to go and check the hours at these different branches. The link is right there. So you can see in that header, that's the first screenshot on this particular slide, we have evergreen links to drive traffic to the San Francisco Public Library website. And I think we all know that we want to always drive traffic back to our sites, so that's a really important and very basic ingredient to put into the newsletter. Next, we have our footer. And this contains key contact information. So how can you reach us via phone? Where is our main branch located? And we actually have a number of different other newsletters that are run by my colleagues in different branches and different departments. So if you wanted to, say, subscribe, you are near the Excelsior branch, you can go ahead and click on that and then subscribe to your more local newsletter. And lastly, of course, we include the links to a number of our social media accounts. We want to always make sure that we're getting people to follow us. So there we go, easy for people to find and to click on. Lastly, we want this newsletter to have really high visual impact. So I really love all of the photos that Samantha was showing for Shreve. And for ours, we use photographs. Sometimes we use illustrations. We vary it up. The reason why I wanted to showcase the June newsletter is because I thought it was particularly colorful and fun. This showcased our Summer Stride learning program for all ages. And for SFPL, we actually have an illustrator create original art to help supplement all of the great public information that we're getting out there. So this particular image is from a children's book illustrator that he created. You can see it's very San Francisco friendly. So we include some type of hero image just to make sure that folks understand what we're all rallying behind every single month, what we're really excited about.
That is so great, and I love what you were saying about putting those links in your header to drive people back to your website, including those social media icons. It's really important to have those basics and just go ahead and put them in your template for your header and your footer. Set it and forget it. What else do you include when you're putting together your newsletter?
Yeah, absolutely. So we include 2 to 3 big articles that showcase what we are sort of like system-wide major campaigns that we're trying to promote throughout the library and throughout our entire communities. So in this case, this image is a little bit cut off, so if you can imagine that little summer stride fun image on top of Get Started, Stay Active All Summer Long, this is the first article that appeared in our June 2019 e-newsletter. So you can see that there's a little bit of background information, and we try to keep it short and snappy so that we talk about what the major goals of this learning program is, how you can find out more, and then we create short and sweet links to different highlighted programs just to pique interest, and we try to appeal to all audiences there. So you can see that we talked about a particular event that we were having with our illustrator in the Presidio of San Francisco. One of my favorites, there was a great program that we held with our partner Fog City Gardener, Learn to Tend Your Own Urban Backyard Chickens. One of our teen programs was Beach Day on the Patio, so we wanted to highlight that, as well as The Mix, another teen program. And then some really cool adult sort of focused programs. There was a biking event in which you could learn about the African American history of our Western Addition neighborhood, and then we had an author event about our ecological crisis with a local philosophy professor. So that was just a way to get people engaged and get them to click on the Find Out More. These are just 6 great programs, but there's so much more going on this particular month. Secondly, we also wanted to highlight Pride for June, and we had all sorts of great LGBTQIA events. So here you can also see that we were showcasing a book, We Are Everywhere, and then we highlighted 3 different programs. Again, top line here, it's just the name of the program, dates, and where you could go, so people could click through and find out more about that. And then lastly, just to break it up a little bit and vary up the content, I know that everyone wants to figure out how they can make this as fun and interesting and engaging for the audience as possible. We kind of pepper the newsletter not only with these longer style articles, but also with some high interest visual images. So in June, the Warriors were still sort of still competing, and people were really excited about our basketball Warriors-themed library cards. So we just did a quick call out, and we basically said, if you're a fan and you got your baseball cap, your baseball cap and all of your other swag, get your Warriors library card too. And we just want to push people, give them a little bit of a, a nudge to go ahead and get, if they knew someone who needed a library card or they wanted to, go ahead and look at that, get a new Warriors card, they could. Yeah. So super fun.
Yeah. No, that is fun, and I love it when libraries have those kind of seasonal or personalized cards. I think people take a lot of pride in having a certain look to the card. Something that you were seeing on this slide, and I'm pretty sure you have some examples coming up, relates to something I get asked a lot. And this may have come up in the chat as well. When you have a ton of content, and you can't cram it in, you probably shouldn't cram it all in because you don't want to have a really long newsletter. You're going to lose people that way. You're using links. And I know people are like, yeah, we know it's a link, but you're not including a description for everything. Tell us a little bit about that, and I think you have some more examples coming up because I think it's a really great strategy, a tool for people that have so much information or want to include things going on at branches. Talk a little bit about how you manage that.
Absolutely. Okay, let me give you a bit of a visual on that. Okay, a couple of quick sneak peeks. Just again, what I'm hoping some of these sort of snapshots will give you is sort of like a mix and match option for the attendees, what would work for your library and maybe some things that you can shelve, because I know each community, each library is very different. So you can see that in response to what Kathy is asking, maybe some of just that top line content that you want to share out and get people interested so they can click through and get the deeper content if they want, but not to weigh down the newsletter with a ton of information. I'm going to point your attention to the second screenshot down there on that slide that's labeled Exhibitions and Events. So this is just one section that we have further down in our newsletter, which just spotlights using, again, very visual heavy, some really glorious images, plus, a clickable link that's going to go back to our calendar listing, and then what people really want to know, date, time, location. So that if someone put this down in the calendar, I want to go to this particular event, and then they say to themselves, gosh, where was that happening? They can go ahead and open up their email, and it's right there. So it's just, it's just really easy to grab and go. I also want to I feel as though some folks are probably interested in how to spotlight some of their e-resources.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and we are always trying to get out news about this. We do really well there, but there are so many different databases that we can share out with our patrons. And so I try to include a spotlight on something that is really relevant to the rest of the newsletter, something that people are going to be intrigued by that particular month. So June, again, was a great opportunity to share our LGBTQIA database, Archives of Sexuality and Gender. And you can see that we do actually share a good amount of information about what this database offers for folks.
Yeah, I really like that. And I love that you mentioned newsletters that I know your branches are doing some, your departments are doing some, and that's the perfect excuse. Just another reminder, we have a quick training immediately after the webinar. I'm going to show you some tips for creating a department or staff newsletter. It's also a great tip for any kind of newsletter that you're putting out right now. So I know that we went through all of this content and you're getting the word out about what's happening in San Francisco. Absolutely. People always want to know about metrics and results. So walk us through those numbers. And I may have gone too far ahead. I forgot you had this other slide. So talk through this and then do that.
Oh.
Sorry about that.
No, not at all. Okay, so before I jump into analytics, I did want to showcase this particular section in our e-newsletter, and I think this is actually a really great opportunity for folks who are thinking about starting their e-newsletter. This is a great way to showcase and not worry about maybe writing too much content, because I know that can be a lot of time. So this is basically what I think of as our matrix or array section of our e-newsletter. And for us, we do like a three, it's a row of three, so you could do 3, 6, 9 images and spotlight these programs. I think of this as kind of being our candy bar section, like the candy aisle and when you're checking out at the supermarket. It's really just visual heavy, it gives a lot of pop. I try to choose source images that are colorful and fun, and it really is just about giving highly top-line information. Again, the name of the program, date, and location, so folks can go ahead and click through and see what we are highlighting at our library this particular month. And then I do think that there are a couple of folks who want to highlight their book clubs. We do have a section after that which highlights our book club picks or our read-alikes. And what's great is that we can link through to our catalog. So folks who say, oh, I did read Pachinko, I want to read this other novel, Bone. If they click on that link, it will send them directly to our catalog, and then they can go ahead and put a hold or order to the library. It's super simple. We want to make it easy for everyone. And, before I hop into analytics again, just a little moment about our friends section. We do like to highlight a lot of the fun events that they do. So if they're doing their Library Laureates program, we want to highlight that. Their annual book sale is a huge event for San Francisco, so we'll include a call out for that. And they have a lot of social events. So we want to just say, hey, consider joining the Friends of the Library, or this is all the great work that they do. So that's fantastic. Okay, Kathy, getting to your question about analytics.
For the slide you've all been waiting for. Ready? Go, Jamie.
Okay, excellent. So this is really, I feel as though our performance is pretty good. We try to monitor this from month to month. Typically, we range between 31% to 33% of an open rate, which is good. It means that a lot of folks are excited about what's happening at the library, and they're opening it up every single month to just say, hey, like, what's going on? Like, this is going to be fun. Of course, the summertime, everyone's looking for something to do. So I think that we did particularly well in June. What I really love is that we also have a great click-through rate that's about over 11,000. And then what I love about email marketing, of course, in particular, is that we can drill down and see which of our links got the most attention. And, you all know the lesson of, you sell what's selling. You want to highlight, of course, programs that are important. You want to get out to the public, but you want to know and capitalize on what people really have been excited by in the past. And so we could see from our analytics that our Summer Stride program got over 700 clicks, as well as SFPL.org. I kind of think that's because I linked the header image, the hero image, to our main site. And then third, which was really exciting, was our library card sign-up. And that was because of that great Warriors image. We got over 700 clicks for that as well. And then something that I was really interested in was an exhibit spotlight on Cine San Francisco. That got a lot of clicks as well, and that told me, people are hungry for films. We have a lot of local pride, and people really do want to know about the history of San Francisco oftentimes. So that's what that told me with that fourth sort of success in our links. So I really love to spend time thinking about the performance analytics, and it's great that email marketing allows us to do that.
Yeah, and I know we get asked this a lot as far as, what's a good open rate. Well, you are doing fantastic with your newsletter. I've read for nonprofits, anything in the 20s is doing great as far as open rates. So you guys are hitting it out of the park. Really doing a great job. One last question. Is there anything you would do differently if you could do it all over again?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I think that it's great to be able to get this news out to our entire audience, but this is a bit of an omnibus newsletter. As you can see, it's like kind of something for everyone. I definitely encourage folks to mix and match the pieces that best fit your library's priorities and audiences, and I wish that we could even drill down even more into our offerings. As I mentioned before, we're really lucky because our different departments and branches have some of their own newsletters, which my colleagues create. So that really works. You can get something that's really personalized and customized if you want that through our library. And I am excited about some of the options that we can go in. I think that incorporating some video would be really exciting. I'd love to do some surveying through our e-newsletter. So I think that there's just all sorts of ways to reach our audience to find out more about what they love and what they want from their library.
Yeah, there's a lot of things on the horizon that people are starting to incorporate. So this is really exciting, Jamie. I appreciate all your time and effort sharing this with us. I want to turn now from external newsletters to internal newsletters. I get asked now and then, so, how can I create an internal newsletter? Maybe it's a staff newsletter. Maybe it's for your department. Where do I start? Well, you are going to love hearing from Sufa Anderson. She does this for the staff of the Las Vegas Clark County Library District. Sufa is the Access Services Manager at that library system, and she oversees circulation, automated materials handling systems, public access to Wi-Fi and computers, the electronic resources and interlibrary loan departments, as well as the distribution center, which is an off-site storage and collection rebalancing facility. And somewhere in between that, she publishes a newsletter. Sufa told me that she loves working in libraries and is especially passionate about ensuring that staff have the tools and information needed to better serve their communities. Sounds like a lot of people listening in today. Well, Sufa, can you go ahead and give us an overview of the newsletter that we see a preview of here on this screen and tell us a little bit about it?
Absolutely. Thanks, Kathy. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to share with you the story of our staff newsletter, Primary Source. I'd like to start with a little bit of background on our library district. The Las Vegas Clark County Library District is an independent government agency. So we are not part of Las Vegas or Clark County government. Our funding is primarily from property and consolidated sales tax. And on this slide, you can see a variety of information about our system, as well as our latest and most popular library card design, our Vegas Golden Knights card. Much like San Francisco Public Library with their Warriors, we've got our Golden Knights. I put this information here predominantly to give you an idea of the size of our library district. What is important to note is that we have 25 branches, so that means we have over 600 staff members spread throughout most of Clark County, which is an area of over 8,000 miles. These staff are dispersed between a large number of locations, varying from urban libraries within the city of Las Vegas itself to smaller rural locations that are sharing space in local community centers. As Kathy mentioned, I oversee circulation for our district, as well as our interlibrary loan, electronic resources departments, the ILS, automated materials handling systems. I could go on, but I'm pretty sure you get the picture. There is a large amount of information that needs to be shared with staff on an ongoing basis. We have a variety of meetings where support staff connect with branch staff and they share updates and information, as well as compile and send out meeting minutes. We also frequently send out emails with pertinent updates to various email distribution lists within our organization, and I'm sure as many of you do, we have policies and procedures available via our intranet. We also meet regularly with team members within support departments, and one of my departments is the distribution center. It's the off-site storage and collection rebalancing facility that Kathy mentioned. As I met with Rachel, the distribution center librarian, we noticed over a period of several months that we kept coming back to the fact that information was not getting to the staff who needed it, despite all these other systems in place. At the same time, several things were happening. We kept hearing other departments say that the information or messaging did not seem to be making its way to frontline staff. Some of our branch staff just didn't know who to contact when they had questions, and most of the staff in our support departments who work in our main service center we spoke with felt that they wanted to be more approachable or visible to branch staff despite that distance. So all of my departments provide training, and quite often when sharing information and training or at meetings, staff will say, "Oh, I didn't know we had that," much like Samantha mentioned with regard to her patrons at Shreve Memorial. So all of this led to the discussion that there just had to be a better way or a place to communicate information that would make its way to staff throughout our organization. Now, Rachel, the distribution center librarian, had the great idea to try a newsletter. I have to be completely honest, when she said this, I absolutely cringed.
Oh my gosh, why did you cringe?
I know it's terrible, but what was really, really cringeworthy for me is just knowing that a lot of work would need to go into the newsletter, not just to get it established, but to maintain it on an ongoing basis and ensure its success. I feel like it's not something you can just create and walk away from.
You know, that is so true, and I think that's something that Jamie mentioned as well. You know, and you can see the work that Samantha and her team put into it. I just want to pause here and say that is such a good point. You know, consider the time commitment you need to publish your newsletter on a regular basis. And if you want some tips on that, dive into that newsletter white paper, and you'll really get some great insights on that. But I digress. So tell me how you all went, you know, overcame this cringeworthy event.
Thanks, Kathy. So we had an idea that we needed to bring to fruition. We continued to discuss the idea in more detail, kind of who would benefit from the newsletter, who would contribute content, you know, what exactly did we want staff to get out of it. We had lots of conversations with other departments to see what they thought, and surprisingly, they weren't cringing. They were all very excited. Everyone was having similar challenges, how to communicate consistently and how to put faces to names and kind of help staff know who to contact when they needed something. So I approached several department directors, including our IT and library operations, and there were no objections to sending out a newsletter, and we went ahead and got to work. On the right here on this particular slide, you can see our welcome message from our first newsletter that we sent out. This was a really, really good introduction to the results of our initial concept.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot.
Thanks. As we developed the newsletter, there were quite a few things we had to keep in mind. The goal or the message is absolutely critical. There needs to be direction or intent behind your newsletter. Knowing your audience is also very important. So if you're doing a newsletter for the public, your audience is your customer. But for us internally, our customer is the staff. So we need to know your audience. And then picking a name, that was quite fun.
I bet that was fun, but how did you do that?
Well, we asked for suggestions from all of the contributing departments, and then we put it to vote. There were some really fun and silly suggestions, but ultimately we wanted a simple name with a positive connotation, so we selected Primary Source.
Oh, I like that. What about, you had mentioned something, I know you were telling me earlier, it was, you had a few hurdles. I think one of them was frequency. So tell me about that.
Yes, that's true. Well, frequency it took a lot of careful consideration. When you think about how often do you want to develop content, that's one part of it. But how often do people want to receive content? You don't want to flood anyone's inbox, but you also want to make sure that the news and information gets to them in a timely and relevant time frame. We initially thought that a quarterly newsletter would be sufficient, but as we started developing the first one, we realized very easily that we could send Primary Source on a monthly basis.
Yeah, those are really good points. What else should people think about?
And then structure, what sections, how will they be organized, the details, all of those take very careful consideration. We found as we worked through the process that getting a set format in place, I think Jamie talked earlier about sort of a template, has turned out to be very beneficial. Each department kind of has their own section, and because of that, it allows for quite a bit of creativity to be blended into the newsletter.
Creativity, I didn't think about that with a format. So how does the format in your staff newsletter allow for more creativity?
That's a great question. So what we found is that if you have a set layout, it really helps content contributors know what to expect to develop each month. I'll often hear in meetings or even sometimes in conversations in the hallway, oh, that would be great in Primary Source. I'm going to go write that down. So contributors are constantly thinking of content, and then they're also excited to create cartoons, add colorful images, and even polls to the newsletter. So you can see an example here on the right and on this particular slide, and I'll be sharing some more snapshots of this creativity in some of our later slides as well.
Okay, great. Keep going.
So, thanks. So there have been many iterations of the newsletter. There are components that change each month, and then there are others that staff can expect to see every time they start reading. One thing I really love about LibraryWare is that it makes it very easy for me to go in and grab a different color scheme every month. There are a variety of seasonal options, different colors and templates, and I'm always excited to see what grabs my attention when I go in to get things ready. Our electronic resources manager, Jocelyn Bates, does a fantastic job of creating a new header every month to go with the color scheme or the theme that's been selected. You can see this one here was for our back-to-school newsletter.
Yeah, I like that with the chalkboard. That's great.
Yeah, very, very cute.
I subscribe to this, and I always look forward to seeing what your header is going to be. I really like that. She does a great job.
Yeah, she really does. So there's also always an introduction, or we call it our header, to the newsletter, welcoming or thanking the readers and kind of highlighting the content that they're going to find. And then each department is responsible for entering their own content in their section.
That's great. And speaking of content, I know that getting content from several contributors, tracking it down again, and then keeping it all organized, all of that, how do you handle all that?
Oh, gosh, yeah. So originally I thought, okay, I'm going to send out an email when we complete the latest edition, kind of let everybody know when the next one's coming out, and then give them about a week before, give them another reminder via email, hey, just remember this is due, and then sometimes even a follow-up the day of if it looked like somebody hadn't had a chance to finish their section. We've gotten the hang of it. Now I just plug the release date into my Outlook calendar, I schedule the reminders, and that process is automated substantially.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of automation. It seems like the older I get, the more I need to automate and not rely on memory.
Oh, no. Well, the last part I'm going to talk about on this particular slide is that in order to encourage staff to let us know what they would like to see included in upcoming newsletters, we did eventually incorporate a feedback and suggestions section with a link to the survey. This has been really great for us to hear from staff, oh, I was hoping you could include information like this, and we love incorporating those kind of ideas as much as possible.
Well, I also love that you include staff picks, which we're seeing here with the current faves. So why did you decide to include these current faves in your staff newsletter? That's interesting.
Yeah, well, Kathy, you might remember from earlier on that one of our goals was to connect the staff the branch staff to our service center staff. So we all work in a library, and we thought this would be a great way to engage others by sharing some of the titles that we have been enjoying or reading recently in kind of a fun way. So along those same lines, each of our department sections ends with a contact us. So you, as a reader, can go through and know who to touch base with if you have more questions about that content in that section or any other questions related to that particular department. I also mentioned earlier that we provide quite a bit of training for staff. We initially incorporated upcoming trainings within each of the department sections that were actually hosting the trainings, but in our last two newsletters, we decided it warranted its own section. So all of the training is now in one place with our links to our training registration page, and that's turned out to be quite beneficial. We also often include a Did You Know section where we share kind of general information and promote some of our services to staff so that they can, again, share them with the public. And then I also wanted to showcase on this particular slide some of the creativity. Our contributors often have fun, including cartoons, graphics, and other images.
I like that one. That's cute.
And then here you've got two more of the lovely headers that Jocelyn has created. And then another section that we often include is the Spotlight Now or Spotlight On section, and that's usually a spotlight on a particular e-resource that our Electronic Resources Department handles. And then that is our upcoming training section from our last newsletter where I mentioned we incorporated it all into one place. And then this last slide has two more examples of some of the creative ways that contributors come up with content to share. Although the newsletter itself has a set format, there are often tweaks and improvements to the way information is shared that are just going to naturally happen along the way. And, for us, Primary Source is truly a group effort to create, and it's just a great example of a variety of departments kind of working together.
Now, I know this is a fairly new newsletter, but what's the reaction been so far? What do people think about it? How's it gone over?
Oh, it's gone over great. When we first published it, we started in January 2019, we had some unsolicited feedback come in like, I love it, thank you, this is wonderful, kind of very well thought out and put together. So as I mentioned earlier, by Volume 3, we decided we wanted more feedback from staff, not that we needed, our heads to swell or anything, but we wanted them to be able to offer suggestions for content. So that's when we added that feedback and suggestions section with the actual survey. And some of the comments have been, now we hear really nice things like, this is my favorite email from the district, great layout with a, quick read and pertinent information, just really, really good feedback.
I like that. This is a great slide to end your section on with all these positive comments. So thanks for that. We are going to go ahead and ask all our presenters one question, maybe two, maybe a couple, that we are getting in from chat. So I'm going to have all of my panelists get ready. Here they come. One that I want to ask everyone, and then, people can decide what to chime in on after that, was what is one thing that people listening can do tomorrow if they want to get started on a newsletter? Samantha, we'll start with you. You've had time to rest and relax.
I would just say if you want to get started on a newsletter tomorrow, is to just really think about what it is you want your audience to know and who your audience is. Come up with a plan for what you want to include. Knowing what you want to write about ahead of time really helps to cut down the time it takes to work on the newsletter. That way you're not fumbling around trying to figure out what can I include. Come up with a plan for what you want your message to be and how you want to get it out there.
Yep, I like that. Sufa, do you have any thoughts on that? What would you suggest?
Thanks, Kathy. I really agree that the audience and the goal are very important, and I also would suggest that your stakeholders are something that you really want to consider. Who are the stakeholders in getting this information out, and who do you need to touch base with prior to moving forward?
Yep, that's a good one too. Jamie, how about you?
Definitely chiming in with Samantha and Sufa. I guess I would drill down a little bit more and just say that once you come up with the sort of like the blocks that you want to put into your newsletter, figure out where you're going to source it, because this should be something that's manageable for you. And I know that we all wear a number of different hats at our organizations. So you want to think about, once you figure out the frequency of your newsletter and the types of things you want to include in it, you want to just make sure that you have a timeline for when you can source the content. If it's going to be bi-weekly, make sure that you have your deadlines, you start thinking about where those fall and how you're going to promote your different programs and offerings, and then just make sure you onboard a team or folks who might be able to help you out with the images and with the content, so you can all sort of make what might be a heavier lift something that's very manageable.
Sure. And we did get a question. I think it's a really great one. You all are with multi-branch library systems. Maybe not everyone's at a multi-branch system, but I know you all have enough experience that one of you all out there can talk about how some of the things you mentioned today can translate for a newsletter for any size. What would you suggest to someone maybe at a smaller system, or didn't have a team at all, much less a couple of people to help out? Any thoughts? Putting you on the spot there, but any thoughts on that?
Well, I would
Kathy?
just say that if you are at a smaller library branch, then just think about what makes your branch unique and how big is your audience. You might not need to do something every other week. You may be able to just do a monthly or a quarterly newsletter. Look at what you guys have going on, what are the programs and services that you offer at your library, and focus on some of your larger initiatives. Maybe it's Library Card Sign-Up Month, or maybe there's an author that's coming to visit your branch, and just tailor it to what you're doing. It doesn't have to include everything at your branch, just those key points, and it doesn't have to necessarily go out as often as some of the other ones do.
Yeah, I see libraries that do a quarterly message, and some that do more of an e-blast. It's a newsletter idea, but it's a lot shorter. Anyone else have some thoughts?
No, I was going to say, this is Sufa, that if you are in a smaller community and perhaps sending a newsletter is something that seems impossible, you are probably already promoting your services in some form or fashion. Can that sort of process be translated to a newsletter, and if your audience is going to be receptive? And if not, maybe you need to consider something like a calendar. If you have a calendar, that's something that could, if you're sharing that within your branch, maybe that's something that could be translated and sent out in a newsletter.
Yeah, I like that. And I know that at San Francisco Public, where Jamie is, they do a lot of newsletters. Most of their branches have a branch newsletter. The departments have some newsletters that they're sending out specific to their department. So I think a lot of the tips that people shared today, all of the tips that people shared today really, can translate really easily, whether it's a staff newsletter, a department newsletter, a big system, one single library. I've seen great newsletters from every size, shape of newsletter around the world. So I think that, a lot of great tips here that we've had. One last question, photo policies. We heard from Samantha. Does anyone have a different policy on that as far as do you get photo releases, or is no sense of privacy, right to privacy, so to speak, secure at your library in the sense that you're at a public place? So no expectation of privacy, I should say. Jamie, do you have the same thing?
Yeah, I am so glad that folks are asking this question, because it's actually something that we've been revisiting in our own system. There are a couple of areas within, so the general understanding is that this is a public space, and so you might expect that if there's a photo taken of you, that that is acceptable policy. For I think taking photos of children, and we all understand that that is some of the most compelling and exciting images. We want to promote our children's programs and that kind of thing. We definitely do ask for a photo release form, or we are only sharing shots of kids that are from the backs of their heads. We try to be super conscious of that. And I bumped into this experience this morning with an event that was happening here, and I asked if it would be acceptable to take a shot, and we didn't have the photo release form. So, and I was like, okay, I can take some shots of the authors who are here instead.
Sure. Lots of different, rules and regulations. Always check with your library. If you're not the person who knows that answer, find out who does. It's always wise to follow your policy. It's also wise to stay tuned, because a lot of the questions that came up we're going to cover here in just a minute on our training. So stick around for that. And don't forget, you're going to want to get this newsletter. It's going to be your guide to getting started. I would also look through it with the newsletter that you already have. See what you might be missing, what you can improve on. So I want to thank all of our panelists. This was, just jam-packed. Thank you all so much. And in just a minute, we are going to start the live training. I'm going to show you some tips on customizing your newsletter. So hang on. I'll be right back. All right, so hang on there for the training, and I am going to share my screen. Hang on one second. Well, actually, I'm going to need to be presenter, so let me do that. So if you are interested in staying on for our training, we're going to get started here. I am going to be covering some tips, some really easy ways to work on your newsletter. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I always like to make sure that's working. Perfect. All right. So right here, you can see that I have logged into my account in Library Aware. For those of you who haven't seen Library Aware before, you're getting a sneak peek here. This is what our subscribers see when they log in. So I'm here at the page, but right now I'm in the newsletter tab because I want to be able to see. Let me click there. I'm going to want to be able to create, create some widgets. And widgets are something I'm not going to cover today. We've got some great trainings on that, and I think we're going to put those in chat so that you can take a look at those. Widgets are going to allow you to be able to create a permanent archive on your site if you want to do that. So that's a really good reason to use widgets, and you can get some training on that. We have some really quick YouTube videos to show you how to do that. So I've gone to the newsletters tab, like I was explaining, and I'm on newsletter lists. So I am going to find my newsletter list. So it's about staff newsletters. I have a whole lot of newsletters here. So I'm going to go ahead and just search the word staff. So this is a good time-saving tip. If you've been scrolling and you've overlooked this search block, this box here, do that. It'll save you some time. So I'm going to go ahead and create an issue. All right, so that's going to load. And once we get into that, I am going to do something that I want to do before I forget, and I'm going to name my newsletter, and spelling correctly is helpful. All right, so I'm going to name it, and I'm going to save it. So I wanted to show off this template. This is a brand new template. This is a template that we put together based on some of the great things that we saw. We have fantastic newsletters and new templates for those newsletters that are created by our very talented designers. Our designers have worked in libraries. They know what libraries want to talk about, what they want to promote. So this is the newsletter that we're going to work with. So I'm going to scroll up there. So one of the really great things about Library Aware is that we have a lot of images. And this header image is really cool, but maybe I want to switch that out and I want to personalize it for the time of year. Some people do that with an internal newsletter. You heard Sufa talk about how she has someone who creates a different look every month for her. We make that really easy for you. So you can just click the swap image arrows. And when you go into this image selector, that's where it's taking me now, you are going to find literally, and I do mean literally, millions of images. That's another bonus to your subscription, that you're going to find images and graphics that our designers have curated for you. These are specific to libraries. You don't have to weed through a bunch of images that you're probably not going to use. These are all about libraries, the programs and services that you like to promote. You're also going to find a ton of book jackets and AV cover art. It's all here. It's like having your own stock photography system, if you will, all built in. So I'm going to show you another quick tip. I'm looking for a header. Did you know? You can just search for header. So by searching header, I am finding all of the artwork that our designers have put together that looks great as a header. I can also narrow that down and say fall, because I want a fall header. Now I can use any image I want, and I can crop it, I can put it into the newsletter and have it fit really well for me. Not a problem. But instead, I'm going to take the easy route and select my image. I'm going to fill it to fill that position, and now I've got a really nice look to my newsletter, I think. The next thing I'm going to do is just highlight this text where it says add date. We add some prompts in there for people to give them some clues, give them a reminder of what they might want to put in there. So you've got that. Now I'm going to scroll down just a little bit, and we've got the photo here. So that's the photo placeholder. I'm going to show you how to do that. We thought it'd be great to start with a message from your director. You don't have to. Like I showed you, you can change that text, and it can be from the manager, from, whatever you want. So all of this is customizable. So I'm just going to click on that photo. And again, I'm going to swap images, but I want to show you something that is really easy to do, and it widens even further the photos and images that you can use. I have an image on my computer of my library director that I want to use. I haven't loaded it yet into Library Aware, but that's okay, because down here at the bottom in the middle, it says select an image from your computer. When I click on that, it's going to navigate to my computer. I'm going to go to my picture files, and I have a folder for library headshots. I'm going to click on that, and I can either double-click this image or I can just say open, and it's going to load it in. Probably unclicked it, sorry. It's going to load that in for me into the image selector. So now it's there waiting for me to use. I'm going to select that image, and we're going to play a game of good, better, best. So kind of an old retail philosophy, right? So if this is good, I've got all this white space here, and it's pretty small picture. You can see right here the picture that our designer put in here. I mean, this is just so fun. So, big, bold image, can really see their face when you've got a person. So I'm just going to go ahead and enlarge that a little bit. It's easy to do. Once again, the infamous fill button. I think someone asked about that. I'm going to click on that fill button, and it made that bigger for me. So that was easy. And it's keeping it at that same aspect ratio, but it made it fill that space better. So that's fine. So I just click over here. You can see what it looks like. Oh, that's better. That's really better. We're going to play good, better, best. So I'm going to click it one more time. I'm going to show you another tool. You can also use this magnifier over here with the plus sign. So I can zoom in on it. So I can zoom like this, and I can say, there we go. That's, a better headshot. I can even zoom in a little bit more if I want. So you can keep playing with it. You can see kind of ghosted out what the rest of my image looks like, so I can kind of scoot it around. There, I've got that in there. That, I think, looks so much better, and I didn't have to crop it. And the good news is your original picture, safe and sound. Didn't do anything to that. Oh, before I scroll down, I wanted to show you that we've got call to action buttons in here. These buttons are available as an image. You can get those from our image selector. We have a ton of different phrases on here that we know libraries use, and you can just click it, click the link option up here to link it. What we love in Library Aware is I can link it to a book, an e-resource, a file. I can do a custom link or a mail to link if I want someone to email me. So just some things that you can do. Wanted to point out before I scroll further. We have a section to promote your new resources. That's always great to talk about. You might remember that SUFA did that. This is something that we love that San Francisco Public Library utilizes, where you have just the name of your event, the date and time, the location, and again, you're going to link here so that people can learn more. You might want to link that to the event information on your website. Remember, have people go back to your site. Now, I want to show you a big bonus that is really something that people love about Library Aware. Again, we are all about libraries. Libraries are all about books, right? And so much more, but we love reading and we love our books. So just like SUFA did, I thought it'd be cool in this newsletter to include some staff picks. So all I have to do, and for people who haven't seen this before, I tell them, I think it's magical. So all you have to do is go ahead and click on that image. And right here it tells me to change the book because we put in a blank book for you to make this easier. So I'm going to change out that book. And then it's going to allow me to search by keyword, author, title, or ISBN. So I think today I'm going to search for author, and I'm going to search for a book by Ralph Ellison. I probably typed his name wrong. No, I have that on there. I'm going to try it this way. I probably typed it wrong. I'm just going to go ahead and type for a title, The Invisible Man. Okay, so it's going to show me several options of the books. I can scroll through here and find the one that I want. You can just see there are a number of different options here. I think the one that I want, I'm just going to go with this one. So if I use this book, you'll see that it pops in the cover for me. It's also going to bring in the title, the author, and the annotation. So this is really cool in Library Aware. If you haven't used this feature, I really recommend that you do. So that makes it so much easier to include the items that you want to include. You can also include books just with the jacket or just with the annotation. Lots of options that you can do here if you want to include something in a different way. I know someone was asking as well, what if they want 3 images across or 3 text box across? So you can do that as well. Add that image in, and just to show off some of our images, you can go back in here and search any keyword that you want. Halloween is coming up, at least for us here in the U.S., and I can go ahead and search for an image that I think would be great. It drops it right in. I can click to activate the box there, the image box, and I can make it fill that space any way that I want. Lots of great tips. I hope you've seen how fun and easy it is to just grab one of our templates. We have tons of templates. We have them for internal newsletters, external newsletters as well. So jump in there, get creative, and always remember, if you get stuck, chat with us. We'd be happy to help you. And the books in that newsletter, thank you, Jessica, for that reminder. I got so distracted with my scrolling skills. This book is linked to your catalog. That is such a benefit because if I go ahead and click on that link, it's going to take me, as a recipient, it's going to take me into my library's catalog, and I can put the book on hold. So thank you so much for that. I ran a minute over time. I hope it was worth it. Chat with us if you have questions, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. Thank you.